Thank you, and welcome to quick conversation on top 10 failures that project managers may want to avoid. जिंदगी जीने के दो तरीके हैं, या तो आप भसड़ करें, अपने भसड़ से सीखें, or the alternate way is to look at what the world is doing and learn from what has happened to successes and failures around you and adapt from that. मेरी कोशिश यही है. I will try and summarize top 10 failures that impact the project world today. Problem number one has always been about scope creep. Poorly defined objectives. जब आपकी साधना finalized नहीं है, जब आपका गोल finalized नहीं है, आप एक अच्छा वेबसाइट बनाने निकलते हो, आप एक सक्सेसफुल कंपनी बनाना चाहते हो, जब आपके पास क्लियरली डिफाइंड ऑब्जेक्टिव्स नहीं होंगे, तो वही भसड़ होगी जो इस टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी के साथ हुआ. एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कॉन्ट्रैक्टेड अ कंपनी टू क्रिएट अ CRM टूल, बट बिकॉज देयर वाज लैक ऑफ क्लैरिटी, उसका आउटकम ये हुआ कि कस्टमर बार बार आपसे नए नए मॉडिफिकेशंस की रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा था, which meant that project was heavily overrun, too many delays, टीम्स में फ्रस्ट्रेशन आ गया, क्लाइंट अनहैप्पी साउंड करता था. और इसका प्रिलिमिनरी रीजन इज द एज ओल्ड प्रॉब्लम ऑफ poor definition of objectives, poor definition of scope. So what is the answer? The answer is pretty simple. The answer to a problem like this is pretty straightforward. You will have to work at creating a detailed scope statement. जितनी बारीकी के साथ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अपना स्कोप स्टेटमेंट डिफाइन करेगी, उतना ज्यादा लाइकली है कि आपका सक्सेस अचीव हो पाएगा. इंश्योर करिए चेंज कंट्रोल का प्रोसीजर एस्टैब्लिश्ड हो. शुड देयर बी सम चेंज इन द स्कोप, मुझे एक फीचर ऐड करना है अपने सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट में, मुझे वेबसाइट में एक पेज ऐड करना है, तो स्कोप के चेंज को अप्रूव करने का प्रोसीजर क्या होगा? Change control procedure must be established as an organization. And you should use prioritization tools. Tools like Moscow. Must have, should have, could have, won't have. अगर आपने टूल्स को यूज करके प्रायोरिटाइज करने में, विजुअलाइज करने में क्लाइंट की हेल्प करी, तो such tools could be able to get you to a good scope statement. So problem one, scope creep. Solution is to have a very detailed scope management plan. Detailing जितनी बारीक होगी, success उतना likely होगा. Lack of stakeholder engagement. You gotta realize that projects are to achieve stakeholder की requirement. तो अगर आपने राइट स्टेक होल्डर आइडेंटिफिकेशन में ही भसड़ कर दी, अगर आपने राइट स्टेक होल्डर आइडेंटिफाई नहीं करा, विच मीन्स दैट रिक्वायरमेंट में ही भसड़ हो जाएगी. सो इफ यू नॉट स्पेंट टाइम डूइंग द राइट काइंड ऑफ एंगेजमेंट विथ योर स्टेक होल्डर और उनकी रिक्वायरमेंट असेसमेंट में ही भसड़ हो गई, आई हैव सीन hundreds of projects that have not done well after their implementation, largely because stakeholders weren't involved. I'll tell you a story. An organization set out to build an office complex, but because end users से conversation नहीं हुआ था, which meant that a lot of the requirements right from parking to lighting to inefficient office space layouts came about. So what is the answer? किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है that you identify your stakeholders and then reach out to these stakeholders for what is the requirement. Sponsor से approvals ले लीजिए, because a lot of these requirements will have cost constituents, could have implications on your project. So reach out to the sponsor, get sponsors buy-in, but without the due participation of the stakeholders, प्रोजेक्ट कभी अपना गोल अचीव कर ही नहीं पाएगी. बिकॉज प्रोजेक्ट का पर्पस क्या है? प्रोजेक्ट का पर्पस है स्टेक होल्डर की रिक्वायरमेंट को पूरा करना. सो इफ यू हैव नॉट आइडेंटिफाइड स्टेक होल्डर्स वेल, if that identification itself is flawed, which meant stakeholder engagement has not happened, which meant requirement में भसड़ मचेगा ही मचेगा. Easy way: spend time identifying your stakeholders, spend time doing requirement collection from all stakeholders, and then do your jugglery around what is achievable, what is not achievable. Have good scope statement based on the requirements that you collected. Stakeholder engagement. Must be careful. Risk management processes. Life हमेशा प्लान के अनुसार काम नहीं करेगी. So one of the core jobs of you as a project manager, as a program manager, is to imagine क्या गड़बड़ हो सकती है and understand and build controls around them. So organizations that have not done good risk identification workshops, that have not spent time in identifying what may go wrong, भसड़ मचेगी मचेगी. For an example, an automobile manufacturer was unable to understand that battery का जो supply chain है is going through a bad phase or may run into a bad phase. The world has changed. The world has transformed in a big way. The world supply chain has taken a hit in a big way. So if your risk management processes have not envisioned, have not planned for a disruption like that, you will get into trouble. A big part of our job as project owners is to manage the risks associated. FMEA जैसा document should be bread and butter for all of us as project managers. So all program managers, all portfolio leaders, all leaders in important roles, बहुत इंश्योर करिए कि सरप्राइजेस को अवॉइड करें. उसके लिए कोई फॉर्मल रिस्क मैनेजमेंट का स्ट्रक्चर हम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जरूर डिप्लॉय करें. A structure like FMEA could be very, very helpful. The age-old poor communication. Organizations that have done well have been places where communication has flowed between the right stakeholders. जिन organizations में communication hasn't happened well, if the right information is not being sent out to the right people at the right time, भसड़ मचेगी ही मचेगी. For example, organization का एक story है that an outsourcing organization set out to do a cyber security upgrade and failed miserably because बाकी teams को sync में थी नहीं. Everyone was doing their own things. Everyone worked in silos. Everyone was unaware about each other's progress, each other's contributions. करना क्या है? The answer is pretty straightforward. Formal stand-up meetings could be very, very useful. You should look at introducing basic agile methods of daily stand-ups. Tools like Jiras and the Trellos, they are no cost. यही आपके सिस्टम में एफिशिएंसीज बिल्ड करेंगे. Tools like RASIC, RMI will be able to clearly define who has to do what, how information has to flow from one part to the another. Communication is a very crucial success factor. And a lot of time, a common sense element like communication is one of the greatest reasons why projects fail. So failure 4, poor communication management processes. Poor coordination will always be one of the most important failures. So if your organization is lacking the basic coordination, if your teams are working in isolation, look at this story. A pharmaceutical company launched a drug development project but failed to define clear responsibilities between which department has to do what. So if your units are not coordination, if the units are not coordinated, God bless the organization. Coordination will always be a very important success factor for all projects, irrespective. So unless there are clear definitions of who has to do what, so what is the answer? You will have to be careful about defining roles and responsibilities associated with your project. Identify what activities have to be done, and then define activities to individuals. So roles and responsibility definitioning using a tool like a RACI or a RASIC, RMI could be a very important success factor for a project. Collaboration emanates from clear articulation of roles and responsibilities. If you don't tell me, I assume, and when I assume, I make mistakes. So very, very crucial that you are clear with who has to do what. A very Indian kind of a problem. And resource allocation. Organizations that are arbitrarily putting timelines to projects. You've not done your maths to decide on how much time does it take to complete a particular activity or to complete a project. You've communicated very aggressive timelines to your customers. Big problem area, causes a lot of real challenges in projects. This is a usual story that you will see everywhere around. An e-commerce company wanted to change the entire world in 6 months. So you've not done maths, you don't understand your own capabilities, you don't understand the complications in the market, and you've decided that I will be able to do this in 6 months. So if you've not done your estimation of your workload well, if you've not planned your project well, which will end up ensuring that your teams are overburdened, you will be rushing into the world with a lot of bugs, you will ruin your reputation. Unrealistic timeline will have a lot of implications. Government of India projects have run into billions of dollars because of delays. So something that was planned for year 2020 is now getting completed in 2025. That cost overrun will have huge implications. Timeline missed will have huge implications. But in order for the timelines to be met, you got to be realistic. You got to understand whether you have the right skill set or not. You will have to put the right kind of resources at the right kind of jobs. So the answer to a problem like this is to look at the agile way of doing things. Plan small, plan sprints. What that does is it allows you to have incremental releases. I want to build from Delhi to Mumbai. This is a good 1200 kilometers road. No, what I plan to finally do is I will break this project into 50, 60 projects. Each project, so let's say Delhi to Faridabad connectivity is only a 26-kilometer strip that we have assigned to a project team 1. I have another project team doing phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. I have ensured that my project is being done in sprints. Good way of ensuring failures don't happen. Team availability. When I have appointed different teams, instead of giving this entire work to one vendor, if I have allocated this work to 40 different companies, I'm essentially saying that resource availability will not be a challenge. Look at historical project data. Analyze yesterday's information to be able to get to a more realistic answer of life. But having a structure like Agile come into the play, doing Agile way of project management will ensure that your projects are realistic, timelines are achievable, and you are able to get outcomes sooner than later. Must be incorporated. So one failure that organizations generally tend to avoid is that they allow the same failures to impact them over and over again. If you understand as a technology group what went wrong the previous time, why are you allowing systems to be jeopardized in the same way again? A very important success factor will be to ensure that your lessons learned repository is well managed. The least we can do is to learn from what we did not do right the last time. And if you aren't learning from where you messed up, what you could have done better yesterday, if your brilliance is scattered, you will more often than not, you will bleed. So your kaizens, your continuous improvement endeavors, that infrastructure will be very important success factor for you to consider as a project. Not having a formal change management procedure is a very common phenomenon in India. So if you do not have your basic change management structures in place, God bless you. A big failure will come about only because of this. For example, a bank introduced a new core banking software, but faced huge resistance from the teams within. If you, as a project manager, haven't understood the change impact and you've not put a comprehensive training program in place to handle this transition very well, more often than not, change will shock the system into it being inoperational. Change is a reality, but it needs to be planned really, really well. Change management structures will always be a very important success factor for all projects to be undertaken. Reliance on tools without the process discipline. You got to realize that organizations will have to realize process optimization will have to be your preliminary focus in your implementation journey. Unless you've thought about the process end to end, projects will not be successful. For example, there's an old story from an organization, and this is a common phenomena everywhere. ERPs, SAPs have been implemented, but the due training hasn't been done well. तो ये समझना पड़ेगा कि अगर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस अपने बिजनेस प्रोसेसेस के हैंडओवर को ठीक से हैंडल नहीं कर रहे हैं, प्रोसेस के बारे में सोच नहीं रहे हैं, एंड टू एंड अगर आपका पर्सपेक्टिव नहीं है, तो projects, despite you having technology tools like good ERP machines, अच्छा SAP, result नहीं आएगा. And then it only creates a lot of anger and discontentment between employee and the employer. So I know a lot of organizations, they've spent a lot of money implementing SAP. बट SAP इंप्लीमेंट करने के बावजूद इन्वेंट्री में पूरी भसड़ बैठी हुई है, largely because your training processes hasn't happened well, and this could be a very important success factor that is impacting your organizational success. Will always be executive support. Organizations that don't get top management buy-in for ideas. अगर top management ने अपना weight project ideas के पीछे नहीं लगाया, if they don't put in their energy, if they don't put in their focus, more often than not, projects will not yield the kind of results they can yield. Now, if for example, a lot of organizations today, they have done digital transformation projects, but without the support from their senior management. And because senior management isn't giving you active support, कहीं पे फंडिंग में इश्यूज आ रही हैं, कहीं अप्रूवल्स में डिले हैं, पूरी एनर्जी प्रोजेक्ट की खराब हो गई. What is the answer? The answer is that you ensure that top management, your leadership, puts their weight behind success of your project. To sum up, these are the top 10 failures that impact projects worldwide. Poorly defined objectives or scope creep, poor stakeholder management, poor or inadequate risk management, poor communication, weak team coordination, having unrealistic timelines, ignoring your lessons learned, not having that improvement infrastructure in place, neglecting your change management processes, not having a focus on your process discipline, and importantly, the executive support. So these are the top 10 failures that impact overall projects, and projects are what will make your company go right or wrong. So looking at these processes could be a good, easy way of improvement of your bottom line, top line in your organization. I hope you find this video helpful. And please comment if you need me to work at some other theme that bothers you today. I hope this video is helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye.